Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about two very important concepts. First, developing a character, and second, staying in that character. Now, these may sound like similar concepts, but there are some big differences. Developing a character is all about creating the mentality of your character so that you know what your goal is. Staying in character is remembering to act the way that your character would. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about developing a character. Now, this is something I really love talking about. When I'm writing, I have to create characters, and it's a very similar process to the one in drama. Now, before we begin, you need to understand that there are two different ways to develop a character, and the one you use depends on the play and the character. The first type is a character that everyone already knows. When everyone already knows a character, your job is different. They have expectations about how that character will act, and your job isn't so much creating the character as in figuring out what everyone's expectations are. You want to read their minds, so to speak, to decide how you want to act. For example, when I was playing Robin Hood or Linus, everyone has preconceived ideas about how they should behave, so I had to read that from them so I wouldn't disappoint them. Now, another way to do it is to develop it however you want and give them something unique, but you have to be able to do it really well to get over their biases about how they already think it looks. When your character is well known, there's often plenty of source material that you can look through to find a basis for your character. As Linus, I could read through collections of Peanuts comic strip to see how he acts and try to imitate that in my acting. As Robin Hood, I read through Howard Pyle's Adventures of Robin Hood to get an idea in my head of how he would act in different situations. The second method is when your character is unknown. Personally, this is my favorite, since I don't have to limit myself to what people are expecting. As Robin Hood, I have to act a very specific way to get people to be captivated by it. But as, say, the mayor of Hamlin, I have a completely different situation. No one knows the mayor. He's a completely unknown factor in the play. When I act as him, then, I want to make sure my interpretation of him is very unique, so it captures the audience's attention instead of being just another side character. Or take Speedy in Crumpled Classics. Now, while he has a very specific character already written for him, none of my audience knows him, so I can take his character and interpret it however I like. I decided to exaggerate his laziness and absolute goofiness as much as I can by adding all sorts of little hand gestures or voices that weren't originally in the script. And that really put a lot of life into the character. Now, both of these are very valid approaches to creating a character, and different actors will prefer different ones. I like having an unknown character so I can showcase my own inventive talent through it, but other people might like having a known character so they can impress people with their portrayal. It's really your preference. However, I would recommend getting a feel for both methods so that you can do either as needed. Often you might end up doing a mix of both. At the SEA Forensics Tournament, I was acting the character of a salesman. He was completely ridiculous, a total caricature of our archetypal door-to-door salesman. So I mixed it up a bit. We can get a ton of humor out of examining our expectations from a different light, so I took some ideas from Professor Harold Hill from The Music Man, and I mixed it in with some of my own little inventions, mannerisms, to try to create a very funny feeling character. So yeah, a mix of both is fine, and sometimes is even better than either. Now, no matter what route you choose to go down, you're going to have to develop a voice. Your character's voice is vital in bringing it to life. First, you have to remember all the things I mentioned when I was talking about vocal expressions. You need to be able to put all of those emotions into your voice. When you have a good idea of your character, though, you can start to pick and choose what emotions you'll emphasize. If you have a really mopey character, for example, you'll want it to sound very sad and downcast, sort of Eeyore-like. That's your main emotion. Once you have your main emotion down, though, you start to shape the other emotions around that one. For example, if Eeyore is feeling happy about something, he won't be nearly as ecstatic as, say, Roo would be. He'll just have a slightly more hopeful tone in his voice. Then he'll probably go right back to his usual mopey self as he talks down his hopes. In the same way, when he's sad, he's not really sorrowful, just pessimistic. So it's not a tearful sort of voice, but more of a, of course this is happening, everything happens to me, kind of feel. The emotions have to be adjusted to fit the character. Now, the actual sound of your voice, whether high or low or such, I'm going to leave that up to you to decide. What I'll recommend is first to record yourself trying different voices, and second to show those recordings to friends. Ask them what they think captures the character the best. Also, decide which one you think is the best. One thing to remember is that you might have to use this voice for an hour or two straight without a break, so you'd better be able to hold it. If you break out coughing after a couple of lines, it's probably not the best choice. Now, let's talk about staying in character. I think this topic gets more coverage in your typical drama rehearsal, so I'll probably say a little less about it since you're likely to hear a ton. First, what is staying in character? Well, I like to define it as being able to live inside your character. I said that you're creating a character because that's almost literally what you're doing. When you create your character, it almost takes on a life of its own. I am no longer, say, Benjamin pretending to be Linus, but becoming Linus through Benjamin's body. I'm taking on the Linus that I've created and acting as it. So, practically, what does this mean? First, you need to be able to keep the voice you developed for the character. If you switch back to your normal voice, it's breaking character. Second, you need to think like you're your character. You already have the lines, but staying in character involves so much more than just lines. When you're thinking like your character, you'll have much more realistic gestures or facial or vocal expressions than you would otherwise, because you're acting like the character you created would. Third, it involves being ready to act. If you're standing in a corner daydreaming and twiddling your thumbs, that's bad. Be engaged in what's happening, unless, of course, your character would be distracted. Even when you're backstage, be thinking like you're acting as your character. That way, you're not taking off a mask every time you leave the stage, but you always have it on in case you have to go on when you forgot, Staying in character is something that can be practiced, just like any other drama concept. So here's what I'd suggest. Get together with some other actors in the play. Then I'll just have a normal conversation, but as if you are your characters. Or you can think up a scenario and act it out, improvising as you go. Improv is a great way to learn how your character reacts to things. But when you're doing it, constantly be thinking, what would my character do? I think your subconscious mind is really good at picking up on this, but you need to force your conscious mind to concentrate. Everything about you needs to be part of your character. You are no longer yourself. You aren't bringing into the act any of your old self's memories or habits, unless you specifically meant to when you built your character. There's a quote from To Kill a Mockingbird that, while not originally applying to acting, fits really well. You never really understand a person till you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. It's the same with your character. You won't really understand how to act as your character until you've tried being your character. Now, if you enjoy writing, like me, I would recommend you try writing a story with your character as the focal point. How does your character respond to the different situations you throw at it? Or even try rewriting the play itself from your character's point of view. That should give you a lot of insight into how your character behaves. I hope this has given you a lot to think about. These are really things that you need to get out there and try. They aren't things you can learn just by sitting at your desk and rewatching this video over and over. You need to take actions that you can get in practice at this. If you don't have a character to try it on, try acting out a character from a book or movie. It should give you some good practice in these concepts. Well, that was really fun. I could talk about this stuff for hours, something I'm really passionate about. This is the last video we've planned in the series that I'll be teaching, so I hope to see y'all very soon in person when school starts up. This has been really fun. I put some exercises in the description as always, so get some practice with those. Joel will be finishing up this course with a lesson on rehearsal etiquette.